love weekends, but boy, they seem like a long time between Friday's show and Monday's show. Good to be back with you live. Actually, we have the best of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on Saturday, but that's a show picked from previously aired shows. So we are back live with you today and looking forward to your as always, great participation in driving the conversation at 1-800-585-9396. I'm Jerry Escher, and she is Debbie Georgiani. How you doing, Deb?
I'm great. I'm about to sneeze. And why is it that every time the show starts, I feel like I've got to sneeze? I don't know what... I don't know. Is that a problem I have?
I don't know.
Can somebody
Debbie,
help me?
I have to tell you what we tell some of our callers. We're not counselors or therapists on this show, so I can't really help you figure that out.
Well, speaking of that, we're talking today about what's your first world problem? What's the thing that irritates you the most in your daily life? And maybe as you look at it, as you kind of dissect it a bit, you're thinking to yourself, what am I doing? I mean, there's people that are really struggling to get fresh water or food on the table, or to wonder, if they're going to even have, an existence of the next day, even because there's threat of war. There's all sorts of terrorist attacks. And yet we get bogged down or miffed or irritated or annoyed by these daily things that arise. And we're just like, no way, I'm not going to tolerate it. So what's your first world problem? That's what we're asking today. And Jerry, you shared something before we went live on the air. And you said that God has a way of just kind of confirming or affirming our shows. And I would love for you to share that, because you didn't get a chance to share it with Rich and I before we started.
Well, I just want to tail on what you said first and put the phone number out there again, 1-800-585-9396. Yes, dear listeners of Take Two, this is one of those shows where we're doing a little bit of healthy self-examination, okay? And even accusing ourselves a little bit. So only the courageous are going to call in today. But listen, here's the thing. We don't want to come out the other end of this show thinking, wow, aren't we all just a bunch of jerks? We want to come out the other end of this show having helped one another realize that, hey, some things in life just aren't worth getting all worked up about, because quite frankly, we have it really good in spite of some of these annoyances or inconveniences. So what would be something for you, or how do you try to keep in mind when you are irritated by something that's going on in your life, one of those little pet peeves? How do you keep in mind and kind of turn that around and say, wait a minute, I'm not going to let this get to me, because so many other people have it far worse than I do. 1-800-585-9396. Okay. Debbie, first of all, I'll ask you, probably the one area of life that really is the most irritating to me, right? You've mentioned it on the show before.
Your patience level?
Well, yeah, my patience level, but in a certain environment.
Oh, driving.
Driving, exactly.
Oh, yes.
Well, for me, my philosophy is I get in a car and I'm not driving to be driving. I'm driving to be somewhere.
Right.
As we all are. But I have to say, slow traffic does bother me. But the one thing that really kind of grates on me, and I live in an area here, if you go down some of these main roads, you have a lot of gated communities and other roads that kind of pop out onto that main road, and there are lights there, traffic lights there. But the lights aren't timed. They just get tripped, when a car wants to pull out of their gated community or something, and they need to turn. And so the light will then get tripped, and then we'll get a red light, on that main drag that we're on. Well, I call it the one-car red light. I'm driving along, just humming along, thinking there's no chance in the world any of these next few lights is going to turn red on me. Boom, 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 one after another. One car pulls out.
Oh, my goodness.
And pulls up to that light, and then it trips mine to red, so they get a green. Okay, they have every right to that. But I call it the one-car red light, and that does get under my skin. But I have to tell you, yesterday, Debbie, I experienced a no-car red light. Really? I came up to one of these exits from one of these gated communities, and I'm humming along, and I said, oh, it's a one-car red light. And I looked, and I went, there's no car on either side. Nobody pulled up. I don't know what tripped that light. So, okay, everybody, I went first. All right, I told you what my irritant is that really is no inconvenience whatsoever. There are people starving in the world. There are people, like Debbie said, facing loss of home and life and, things like this. So maybe for you, you get a meal that's not served hot enough in a restaurant. well, then you quickly catch yourself and you realize, wait a minute, there are people who don't have food. Or if you have a child who wakes you up crying in the middle of the night, and that, you can get a little impatient, like most parents might, but then you stop and realize, wait a minute, I have a little baby that I can love so much. So give us a call. Get on board with this conversation. We need your participation. 1-800-585-9396. Okay, I'm hogging. Sorry, Debbie.
No, you're not. Not at all. But I was just thinking this morning when I woke up, the news today about the explosion that happened in New York City. And it just reminded, me that as we were doing the show, What's Our First World Problem? I was thinking about all the folks in other countries that live with this kind of threat all the time. I mean, look how it totally changed everything that happened in New York City today. Thank God, no one was killed, but. It changed everything. Can you imagine waking up every day or having that tension when you go to sleep? Am I going to wake up the next day? But yet we worry about the things that seem so trivial. Like I'll be the second one to go. It bothers me when I go to places and they don't have Wi-Fi. It just does. It just because I'm like you said, Jerry, you're on a mission. You're trying to get things done, and then you go to some place and they say, "Oh no, we don't have it here," or there's certain spots that you can't get Wi-Fi, and you're thinking, "Oh my goodness, now I can't get my work done." And so, but that is so trivial compared to what other people are struggling with. Like Rich just shared that still half of Puerto Rico still does not have power. I can't even imagine that. I mean, how do you function? So we sometimes worry about the things that seem so meaningless in the big picture. And we want to hear from you. So we both shared, okay, hey, we're human beings. I mean, we all feel these things, no matter where we live or grow up or what our circumstances are. But we want to talk about it, see if we can come to a better place at the end of this show. Here's the number, 1-800-585-9396.
Okay, we got some lines that are taken right now, but a couple still are open, and we know that you can help make this show what it's going to be, another great episode of the program, not because of me and Debbie, but because of you. Talking about those irritating things, those inconveniences that really don't amount to that much, and not so much focusing on that and how we get bothered by them, but how we turn that around and say, wait a minute, God, I'm thankful, I'm grateful for all the blessings I do have. Please join us.
Hi, I'm Archbishop William Laurie, the Archbishop of Baltimore.
This is Janet Benkovic, host of Women of Grace.
This is Father Dominic Legg, Morning Glory Godly Counsel. Have a blessed Advent from all of us at EWTN Radio.
The Holy Father's prayer intention for the month of December is that the elderly, sustained by families and Christian communities, may apply their wisdom and experience to spreading the faith and forming the new generations.
Missing Catholic radio in your area? Heed God's call to get involved and start a Catholic radio station. Contact Jack Williams, 205-795-5756, or email jwilliams@ewtn.com.
60 on 10 with Monsignor Charles Pope.
The seventh commandment forbids theft, that is, unjustly taking or keeping another's property against the reasonable will of the owner. It also prohibits deliberate retention of goods lent or of objects lost. It prohibits business fraud, paying unjust wages, forcing up prices, and taking advantage of the ignorance or the hardship of another person. It prohibits the appropriation and use for private purposes of common goods. Also, work poorly done, tax evasion, forgery of checks, invoices, excessive expenses, and waste. Under the seventh commandment is also tucked our social justice teachings, because if I have two coats, one of them belongs to the poor, and I reasonably ought to give what belongs to them, because God gave all the goods of this world for all the people of this world. The seventh commandment, you shall not steal.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
So glad you're with us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Remember, you drive the show. Well, your takes, when you call in, you take that, 5 to 10 minutes of your busy day, and you dial this number, 1-800-585-9396. What you have to share, your life experience, your really, truly, this is why it's called Take Two. Your take on things makes all the difference in the world. So please don't sit this out. Don't be entertained by all of us and all the things that bother us. We want to hear from you. 1-800-585-9396, just like Tom called in from Florida, listening on Divine Mercy Radio. Hi, Tom. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom. Welcome.
Thank you. Am I on the air now?
You are now on the air, yeah.
All right, great. I love your show, and God bless you for doing it. I am a retired healthcare professional, and now that I'm retired, I'm a groundskeeper, and I still have a long commute. So, Jerry, this is more or less in response to your traffic frustration. Mm-hmm. I used to commute from Melbourne, Florida to Orlando, and it was an hour and 45 minutes from my home to the hospital. And one day, after the long commute and the normal aggravation you would see, the very last traffic light I had is a left turn signal. And in front of me, after an hour and 45 minutes, is a lady in kind of a beat-up minivan, and the arrow comes on to turn left, and she doesn't move. And in days gone past, I used to be frustrated, annoyed, what's wrong with this person? I stopped and realized it was like, I have no idea what this particular person had experienced. Perhaps someone passed away in her family. Maybe she had an argument with a child, trouble with her spouse. So anytime I see or encounter a traffic glitch, a la like what you've described with the one red light car deal, I say a prayer for them, and it makes me feel better. And even though I had to sit through a whole cycle of lights to make that turn, I wasn't annoyed. So I hope that maybe you or others that encounter traffic daily will turn those frustrating, annoying situations into a positive. And to this day, I now have a long commute and still encounter drivers, but I always say a prayer for these people.
Well, Tom, yeah, obviously you have really, what you said, obviously, as you alluded to, struck home with me, and I'm just very inspired by the way that you have now managed to kind of, as I say, reframe that. And I try really hard. I mean, my first reaction is usually to get agitated and irritated and all of that, but I'm trying to get better at just saying, whoa, Jerry, whoa, stop for a minute. And like when I come up on these one-car red lights, you know, these cars that kind of just appear out of nowhere and cause me to have to stop at a red light, I have to turn that around and say, wait a minute, they have every right to get a green light. Well, what is the matter? You know, who am I? You know, it's just my pride. I know it's just my pride. So, Debbie, I know what Tom has shared, I think, is really going to help me going forward, and maybe other people who have the same little irritating type of experience.
Well, and Tom and Jerry, I just wanted to say, Jerry, I've driven with you many times. I've heard you. You think it's under your breath, but I've heard you say a lot of rosaries. So you're very good at that. Because I've actually said to you one time, "Are you mumbling a rosary?" And you said yes. So you're pretty good at that, and I think that's a healthy perspective. But Tom, it's interesting what you're saying, because I don't necessarily, in my situation with being irritated about like not having Wi-Fi at a certain public establishment. But you know what I've done, Tom? Similar to that is I've said to myself, okay, Lord, you obviously do not want me to work right now. There's obviously a reason why there's an absence of Wi-Fi. So I need to go with that. I need to be grateful that I am that and understand that there's always there's always a purpose for things. There's always God's will in things. And I've got to surrender to that. So Tom, to your point, I think that's just so healthy to just have that very quick response instead of getting irritated, to really turn it back to prayer or to God. I fully agree with that method, and I hope that others see that already. This is turning out to be a fabulous catechetical show, because I think it could help all of us, especially during the hustle and bustle of the holiday season. Wouldn't you agree, Tom?
I certainly do. I really do. And that's an opportunity for all of us to remember, now we can pray when you're standing in line and there's multiple people ahead of you, or they don't have enough on their debit card, and you know the situation. You just stop, and instead of being annoyed, say a prayer for them. It makes me feel so much better, and I figure I'm helping that individual.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Tom, thanks for your call so much. And during that hour and 40-minute each-way commute, I'm sure you get some rosaries in yourself. So please remember, take two with Jerry and Debbie and all of our listeners, if you would be so kind. And we do appreciate you calling the program today. Thanks so much. 1-800-585-9396. I even had another little experience yesterday. I was at the grocery store picking up a few things. I was in a real big hurry. And so I saw the shortest line, and I was heading for that line. And a woman with a basket overflowing with stuff just pulled up right in front of me. And I just went, oh, one of the things like, oh, my goodness. And you know what? I said, wait a minute. She's got every right. She did nothing wrong. And sometimes God can give you a little...
Did she shove you out of the way?
No. But sometimes God can give you little blessings at that point, because she looked over at me. She says, you only have a couple things. Why don't you go before me?
Oh,
so
sweet.
I sort of bit my tongue and my thoughts, and I said, "Wait a minute, Jerry, stop it! Stop thinking that way." I came around to thinking, wait, this is no problem at all. And then God tossed that little blessing in there. So not going to say it's going to happen all the time, but sometimes when we get our mind and our heart straight, God will say, okay, now I'm going to give you a blessing for that. So
yeah. Well, I think what you're also saying too, Jerry, is just to kind of take a step back and not react in our emotions, and just kind of let it see how it plays out, because the blessings are there. I mean, God is always present. I mean, we know that. And so I think it's interesting when we don't respond, we don't react. My husband's a real big person that says, you've got to just totally think it out and respond before you react. And I'm learning that. It's taken me 50 plus years. But let's see what Jared has to say in Great Bend, Kansas, listening also on Divine Mercy Radio. Look at you guys go on Divine Mercy Radio. I love this. Hi, Jared. Welcome to Take Two.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. Thing that I get frustrated with is at my business, we painted lines. I own a small business, and I painted lines for people to park, and people pull up and park wherever they want to. And I have to catch myself, because sometimes I get really mad at people that when they park like right in front of my door, because sometimes they end up being handicapped, and then I feel like a fool when I find that out. And it's kind of hard to keep your thoughts under control, but that's what kind of frustrates me. So I'll listen on the radio for you guys.
Okay. Thanks, Jared.
Have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
Well, that kind of bothers me too. Are you talking about, was Jared really talking about people that park over the line? I can't stand that. It drives me nuts.
I assume that's what he was talking about.
Oh, it drives me nuts. Because here's the thing. You can't open the door of your car. You can't even get into the parking space. And then you end up, you possibly could ding the person's car. So then it has this whole ripple effect. I mean, why don't people just take the time to park in between the lines?
Well, then there are the people who, to avoid getting any kind of dents or dings in their cars, they'll park, instead of parking, straight into the spots between the lines, they'll park sideways and take up,
what?
2 or 3 spots. Yes, and nobody
I don't think that's right.
There. No, it's not right, but people are going to do what they're going to do, and we all have to kind of live in harmony with others in the human race. And of course, there are a lot of things that I do that people don't like too, I'm sure. So, thanks, Jared, again for the call. 1-800-585-9396. Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Today, we're talking about what is we're calling it first world problem, because, in third world countries, people suffer. They struggle. Debbie, you mentioned one of your first world problems is when you can't get on the internet. And then you stop and you turn that around and you realize there are some people who don't have electricity, let alone internet. Mm-hmm. So, dear listeners, how do you reframe your little life's frustrations, your little irritations in life, and say, whoa, wait a minute, stop it, self. I'm not going to go down that road, because there are people who have it a lot worse than I do right now, or I've got it pretty good, in fact. How do you do that? Share how you do that so we can learn. 1-800-585-9396.
I think, too, when you travel outside of the United States, you realize, I think I'm safe to say this, Jerry, that here in the United States, we're very, very spoiled when it comes to things that we, have at our fingertips, or, things that we're able to acquire very easily. And you really, you come back to the United States and you go, wow, we really have it we're very blessed. And do we realize that? And I've often said that I wonder if the next generation realizes that. I mean, how incredibly blessed we are. And maybe that's it. I mean, I as I get older, I realize it, and I'm very grateful. And I certainly don't want to lose that. But how do we go on a daily basis of appreciating it? Maybe it is just like what Tom was saying the prayers for others, and maybe turning it into every day being a prayer. So maybe that's it. 1-800-585-9396. We want to hear from you. What is your major annoyance that when you really look at it, you're thinking, what am I thinking? This is ridiculous. I'm wasting time getting annoyed over this. 1-800-585-9396.
Okay, to Columbus, Ohio. Sherry is listening to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. And Sherry, we welcome you to the program next. Good to have you with us.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Very well.
Hi. Okay, good. We work with Food for the Hungry, of course, in our town, and my daughter was supposed to be giving Food for the Hungry. Well, in our cupboards, we have expired food because we eat a lot out of the freezer. So every time it's her turn to give food, we don't have very much because we end up eating the expired food. Well, I'm not allowed to give the expired food, so I sat down and I wrote a check for $150, which is probably about our week's worth of groceries. And it was offered to the school that she goes to. Well, she ended up, to turn it around, I'm like, okay, here we go again. Give them to the poor that won't eat expired food, but I have to eat it, and I give them this money. And then she ends up winning an award for it. So that's how God humbled me and said, Sherry, this is not the right way to think about this. And my daughter ends up winning an award. So I just thought that was funny, and that's one more way God uses even the weakest people like me.
Yeah, see, that gets at that example that I shared. I don't know if you heard it, Sherry, when I was in the grocery store yesterday, and a lady with a really overflowing cart just barely beat me to the checkout line, and I had about 6 things. And I just mentally and in my heart, I had to back away, too, and just humble myself and say, wait a minute, who am I to think that, that I had a right to the spot in front of her, and then God gave me that blessing of her saying, why don't you go before me? This is the same thing, though. You learned a great lesson, and Debbie, this is what this show is about. It's about growth. We want to grow and learn from the experiences of Sherry and our other listeners, and I'm taking this all in right now and realizing I have a lot of work to do, but Sherry, you've done a lot of that work, it sounds like. I know I can speak for Debbie. We're proud of you.
It's so hard, very hard. But we have a lot of poor in our community, and I always feel like, I always give the seconds, that I keep the seconds and they get the best. So,
beautiful. That's beautiful.
That's the way that works.
It is beautiful. But Sherry, you were saying how this whole experience humbled you. And as you were sharing that your daughter won the award, I was just thinking to myself, boy, does the good Lord have a sense of humor? I mean, he really does.
He does.
I can't wait to meet him in person to say, boy, Lord, you have the greatest sense of humor.
Absolutely. All right. You guys have a good day. Thanks for your program.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
1-800-585-9396. See how easy it is, Debbie? A little bit of self-reflection, and somebody would have something to call in and share with on the program today. And we've got that open phone line right there.
We do. 1-800-585-9396. Jerry, I just received a text from a friend who said that when they were in Italy, and I can confirm this because this actually happened. When they were in Italy, they said that the Italian citizens used to say, "Boy, you people from America are very spoiled," and it's so true, and I can confirm that. I mean, there were so many things that we take for granted, and that are really very special over in other countries, and I think that is very important that we remember that we don't live in this bubble. So I think it's this is a very healthy discussion we're having, especially during this time of year. So if you want to jump in, now's the time. 1-800-585-9396. And I know, Jerry, you have some social media posts that are coming in quite rapidly.
Yeah, there are various other ways to get your take on the program. You can text the letters EWTN to 55000. Might be a tiny little data rate depending on your plan, but love to hear from you that way. Or YouTube, EWTN's YouTube channel, or Facebook Live. And on Facebook Live, Raul couldn't hold. He called in, but he couldn't hold on the line. But he says, I try to combat my first world problems by gratitude, by being more grateful. He says even Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, isn't guaranteed a tomorrow, which is true. None of us is guaranteed tomorrow. And then Mike on our YouTube channel, and I share this with you, Mike. He says, my personal pet peeve is people who have car stereos that sound like a drive-by earthquake. He says, I live near a car stereo shop. I have to have patient suffering, and that's one of mine too. When you're about 4 or 5 cars behind somebody at a stoplight and your windows are vibrating.
Well, I'm worried about their ears. I mean, they're going to
So am I.
They're going to go deaf, aren't they? I mean, that's what my
mother
always
and I know
said.
some jurisdictions have laws against that kind of stuff, but
Yeah, that's a tough one. I agree with that one. Okay, Kathleen, you're up next.
Well, you know what, Deb?
Oh, we don't what?
We got the break. We got the
Oh,
break.
we do? See, I get so
Kathleen, if you
excited.
can hold for another just a couple minutes. Yeah, I didn't realize how fast the show was going either. So
I
we'll
know.
ask Kathleen to hold for a minute, but get right back to her.
Yep. So, Kathleen, we're going to just hit the pause button just for a little bit. When we come back, we're going to go to you in Silver Springs, Maryland. So hang on there. We want to hear what you have to say. This is Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. We're talking about those annoyances, your first world problems that when you really look at them, they're not problems at all. 1-800-585-9396. That's the number to get on the show.
Jumpstart your faith. Now coming to a parish conference or retreat near you, world-renowned Catholic radio host Jerry Usher.
It's not enough to stop doing whatever it is that's keeping you from union with God. For most of us, there are serious issues that need to be addressed first in order to be able to embrace that life of virtue. All those things we're all called to, but which every one of us struggles to achieve.
Invite Jerry Usher today. Contact thirdmillenniummedia.com.
And welcome to EWTN's Bookmark Brief. I'm Doug Keck. I just finished an interview with Jimmy Akin on his new book, The Drama of Salvation, How God Rescues You from Your Sins and Brings You to Eternal Life. Give us some highlights of what this book is about, Jimmy.
Well, basically, The Drama of Salvation covers the most important subject in practical terms that all of us will ever face, namely, how are we saved? It's a subject that's going to determine where we spend eternity, whether we spend eternity with God in heaven or banished from His presence in hell. It's a subject that has eternal consequences, and that's what this book is about. It goes through the teaching of the Bible, it goes through the teaching of the Church Fathers, and it talks about the different perspectives on this subject that you find in American Protestantism and how to respond to those from a Catholic point of view.
Thank you so much. The one and only Jimmy Akin from Catholic Answers fame. The book is The Drama of Salvation. Look for the book on EWTNRC.com, and thank you for joining us here on EWTN's Bookmark Brief.
I'm Lisa Poptek with More to Life. Advent is the time to reflect on how God took time out of the busiest schedule in the universe to be present to us. This Advent, take some time to make more time to be with the people you love. Make Christ present in your home by being more present. Let God's love be incarnate in the way you attend to the people you care about, and let them know that the most important thing you have to do is spend time with them.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. Thanks to our show team, Rich, Matt, Jeff, Mike fills in, Tom fills in, Jack and Doug and everybody at
We need everybody to help us.
Yeah, we need a lot of help. We thank you, the affiliates, too, for carrying the program, and especially you, the listeners, who make this show what it is every day. 1-800-585-9396. I know I can speak for Debbie. It's certainly the highlight of my day to be with you. And today we're talking about the little irritating things, annoyances, frustrations in life that we would call maybe just first world problems because, you know, when we have life pretty good overall, we've got a roof over our head, a car, a job, food to eat, and yet still air conditioning, Wi-Fi, some of these, when we don't have one of these things, we might get a little bit bent out of shape, and then we realize, hold on just a minute, there are a lot of people around the world, even in this country, who just do not have the same amenities and luxuries that we have. So please join us with your take. And Kathleen is next in Silver Springs, Maryland, as Debbie promised going into the break. And Kathleen, we didn't want your first world problem to be radio hosts who bring you onto the show and then rudely cut you off because they didn't realize there was a break coming. So thanks for your patience during the break there,
No
Kathleen. Welcome.
Thank you. I just have a quick little anecdote that actually happened to me this weekend. My family went to a little play, and it was really cute, a little nutcracker. And afterwards, we were talking about it and how it was nice. And I said, "Oh, there was a little boy behind me, and he kept kicking my chair." And through part of the program, and I was like, "Oh, it was annoying," but I knew he wasn't going to stop, And my son turned to me and he said, "But Mommy, he's just a little kid." And, it just reminded me, we have to give everybody a break and not be so quick to get upset about the little things. And when little ones are acting up or moving around, that's just what little people do. So.
Well, I have to tell you, Kathleen, you've got my vote for sainthood, because that is one of my biggest pet peeves. It drives me crazy, especially if I'm I recently just on an airplane, I wanted to sleep so badly, and this little kid, adorable little kid, was behind just kicking. And finally, I took it for about a half an hour, and then I just said to his mom, I just said, "Listen, is there any way you could get your son just to keep his feet down?" And she didn't even realize he was kicking, and he didn't kick the rest of the plane ride. But I have to tell you, I felt a little bad. But so I give you a lot of credit, and I think it was beautiful how your child mentioned that, and you're right. But it's interesting, because where do you find that balance? Maybe you could help us, Jerry, because you've never had children. Where do you find the balance? Because at some point, do you step up and say, "Hey, that's intrusive on other people's, you know what I'm saying, Jerry? Like, at what point do you say something or not?"
Having not had kids, I'm not sure I'm the right person to ask that question, where I would find the balance. But I'm probably right where you are, Debbie. I'll take it for, if a little child is kicking the seat behind me on the plane, it's kind of, okay, not a huge deal. Now it's getting to be a little bit more of a deal. I don't know that I've ever said anything, but where my thoughts go, and I don't know if this is right or wrong. Maybe I'm being a jerk about this, but my thoughts go more to the parent, sometimes, and I think, well, why is this child not able to behave? And even sometimes even parents, Kathleen, maybe you've experienced this. Parents will even say, Johnny, stop doing that, and he won't stop doing it. Or sometimes I'll just turn around and look at the child, and he'll realize his conscience tells him he's doing something wrong,
right?
And he'll stop, and then he'll start doing it again. So I don't know. These are those tough moments that we find ourselves in.
But I give you a lot of credit.
I was in a time-limited. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Kathleen.
I knew I was in a time-limited situation. Like, I wasn't going to be sitting there for a cross-country flight. So
right.
It was like, it's towards the end of things, and so I knew we would be wrapping up soon. So, but it is hard, but sometimes to not say something. But in this case, since I knew we were getting out of there eventually, I didn't bother.
Right. You offered it up. There you go. I love that. Well, Kathleen, to your point, I just want to say something real quickly. Another thing that just irritates me is whenever you're in a movie theater, have you ever had this happen where somebody puts their feet up on the back of your chair, and you're literally have your head on the bottom of their shoes? I mean, that to me, I think, is the rudest thing.
It's a headrest, Debbie. Come on.
No, it's not a headrest. But see, Kathleen, now you're making me remember all these things. No, I'm just teasing. Kathleen, that was awesome. I'm so glad you shared. And you know what?
Oh, thank you.
I'm happy you and hopefully you enjoyed the play. It sounds like you did, though. So that was great.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thanks, Kathleen. All right, that line is open there. Your first world problem is 1-800-585-9396. Take two with Jerry and Debbie. If you've just joined us, what we mean by that, your first world problem is what is something in life that maybe gets a little bit under your skin? Perhaps it's that pet peeve. A lot of other things don't bother you, but there's this one thing might just really irritate you, and you got to find yourself, kind of stop yourself in your tracks and say, wait a minute, you know what, this is so minor compared to what other people around my neighborhood, around the country, around the world are having to deal with on a minute-by-minute basis. 1-800-585-9396. Ollie is next, listening to Ave Maria Radio in Belleville, Michigan. Hi, Ollie. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi, Jerry and Debbie. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Anytime.
Just wanted to tell you guys that I am from a third world country, living in a first world country. So for me, it's very interesting, especially when we go to Mass. We have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old girl. And our church doesn't have a cry room. And for me, that's very normal because in our countries, we don't have cry rooms at all. We don't even have ACs, or air conditioners, or heaters. So for me, it's very normal to see babies, especially that young, not being well behaved, taking a little bit of the past phone call, because it's hard. It's hard to control them. Even though you're trying to discipline them, sometimes in the case of my oldest daughter, for instance, she will just go against you. She will be just rebellious, So, but I've noticed that here in the States that most of Americans, they can't stand noise. They always look at you like, what's going on with you? Like the level of tolerance with younger kids, it's weird. So cry rooms for me are one thing that, okay, what's the problem with noise? Thank goodness our pastor, he loves kids, so there's no problem with him. But for me, Americans are very sensitive to noise or to loud sounds. And the other thing that I didn't mention previously is that one day we were watching this Dave Ramsey show, and he was talking about sometimes when you don't have enough money, the only thing that you have to eat is rice and beans and rice. And I was astonished to see the faces of the people disgusted. And I was like, what's wrong with that? That's our basic meal. And, in Caribbean countries, sometimes that's luxury.
Right.
So I think it's a way of perspective. You mentioned that before, David, that when you travel offshore and you see the realities of other countries, then it's so different. You have a different perspective of things here. I am very grateful, and I'm beyond blessed to be able to live in this country. And for me, every little thing is just a blessing, and I'm grateful for everything, even a baby crying at Mass, because I know what it is to lack of comfort, of food, of clothes. So I just wanted to share that, and just want to tell that America is a great country, and this country is so blessed, and the people is so blessed, and you guys are amazing. And I'm proud to say that I'm not an American citizen.
Ollie, I'm so glad that you took the time to call in and share with us from your experience, your life experience, because I think it really helps us, especially during this time of year where we are in a shopping frenzy of trying to acquire as much as we possibly can during the Christmas holiday. And I'll tell you to hear your story and then to make us just kind of think for a moment and say, wait a minute, we need to really be grateful, like Ollie is. You're sharing it right from your heart. You said, I'm blessed, I'm grateful. And you know what? That's how we all should be. And your call really impacted me greatly. I hope it has others as well, because it really does kind of wake us up and say, wait a minute, we're getting so used to all these things around us that are incredible luxuries. What if they were all taken away tomorrow? How would we even function? Because we're so used to them. And really, we got to get back to the basics. So I agree with you 100%. What do you think, Jer?
Yeah, well, as you were talking, Ollie, I'm reminded of something that I do catch myself thinking sometimes, and that is, when I see, for example, on the issue of little babies who cry or act up or whatever. First of all, I have to turn my thinking around and say, wait a minute, infants, for example, don't know how to, quote, behave well. They just know how to behave, kind of be what an infant is. When they need something, they're going to cry. And even a little bit older children. And so sometimes when I see kids, crying, not getting their way, for even trivial reasons, you know what I think? I think to myself, so this is how God sees me a lot of the times, because I'm that way with God. I'm like, God, I'm not getting my way, So I just try and turn that around and say, okay, God, I get you.
So true. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. And sometimes I see like moms looking at you, like, with older kids or older ladies looking at you like, what's going on with your kids? And I was like, wait a second. I think that your kid went through this too a long time ago. You don't remember. So it was a break a little bit. And one more thing that I live in Michigan, and right now we're having a big snow time. And even that, for me, it's a blessing because I only saw this when I was a little kid on postcards and movies. So when I see this, it's like it's like I'm in a movie right now, and thanking God that everything that we watched on a TV or on a postcard, it's my reality now. So, and guys, you are such a blessing in my life. I started listening to you 2 months ago, and I can't thank you enough for your vocation and your work for the gospel, for spreading the gospel, and to trying to keep that love for our Lord alive. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Ollie. Thank you so much. You can call anytime. As a matter of fact, call all the time because you made our day. Thank you so very much.
Well, thank you, Ollie,
you
and love you too. And, so many people say what Ollie said. And please, dear listeners, we want you to know that, you're the one. We feel that way about you on this show. That there is no Take Two with Jerry and Debbie without you and your life experiences and your insights and your takes and your wisdom. I mean, my goodness, Debbie and I could just sit here and spew words for 55 minutes every day, You don't want to hear that. And so we want to give you the platform, really, to shine and to be the ones who teach and educate and inspire. So please, any words of gratitude you have for us, just please know that those we appreciate them, but we just turn right around and toss those right back to you. So thank you so much. And we're going to get to, let's see, who is next? Maureen and then Honey. But I want to mention that for those who are looking for news from a Catholic perspective, EWTN is the source, and one of those outlets is the Catholic News Agency. I've said it many times on this show, Debbie, as you know, I don't watch local or national mainstream news just because I don't feel like I'm getting the straight scoop. I feel like I'm being lied to quite often. I feel like there's so much just fear woven into all of that. And we really need to get the news kind of unbiased, unfiltered, and from a Catholic perspective, not with a Catholic bias added on top of it, but just simply through a Catholic lens. And so CNA is the only fast, reliable, and free Catholic news source. It's got blogs, stories, opinions, all of that right at your fingertips at CatholicNewsAgency.com. So I want to make sure that those of you who are listening are aware of that and tap into it as often as you can.
Okay, Maureen, you've been waiting so patiently. I think you got our Virtual Patience Award in Rochester, New York, listening on the Station of the Cross. Hi, Maureen. Share with us your wisdom on this subject.
Well, hello, guys. I called a couple of weeks ago, and I think the subject was about taking risks or something, and I was the woman who said that I had lived in Africa for a year and a half with the Maasai. So
right.
My husband died of Alzheimer's. And so when Ollie was talking just now, it's really cute because she's appreciating the snow because, and I lived in the middle of the Serengeti and just couldn't believe it. Every day I'd look out the window and see giraffes and everybody around me was used to it. But anyway, yeah, the car thing is really I did live in Tanzania for a year and a half with no running water, no electricity, no anything, helping the Maasai build a school. And when I came home, my idea had become that when I'm in America, I really confuse need with want. I'll be at a store and I will pick something up and I'll think, oh, I need this. No, I want this. So I've been trying to maintain a kind of a life a little bit simpler. And last November, my car died. And I got all freaked out. And, I teach college. And I thought, how am I supposed to get to class? Oh, my God. It's like 4 miles away. And I clocked it, and it was 1.3 miles. And then I realized it was an early Christmas present from God. It was a treadmill, only it was outside. So I gave up the car. I started walking, and I figured I'll walk until I can afford to repair it. And then I could afford to repair it, but I knew if I did, I wouldn't walk anymore. And that walking time is when I say my rosary, and I pray for the people in the cars passing me, saying, oh, please, God, just keep them calm. I know how it is to drive. Don't let them get upset with each other. And by the time I get to class, I am like in seventh heaven, and I've meditated and talked to God all the way, and my day is great. And so I'm 63, and I'm not going to get a car until I retire, because now I've decided he's getting me in shape so I can do the, what is that walk across the northern part of Spain, the Camino.
The Camino.
Community de Santiago, yeah.
Yeah.
Community.
I mean, it'd only take me 40 days, but what the heck? I'd be retired.
I'll tell you what,
So
Maureen,
I
that's
just
on my bucket list. I would be up for that.
Oh, well,
yeah.
Maybe we'll go together.
Yeah, I would totally do that.
I really do agree. I think we complain about too many little things. And I am a living proof that if you just put your trust in God, you will get what you need. And if you start to realize what you're getting is what you need, it makes you brighter as to things. I mean, I spend less money. I walk every place. I probably clock 6 miles a day. And I laugh at the people who buy those little things to see how many steps they take a day. It's like, yeah, all right. But I do have one more thing about crying children in church and the noise and stuff. I would much rather hear little children and crying babies. If we didn't have that, I mean, a church without children's sounds is a dying church.
Mm-hmm.
What bothers me are the adults who could call each other on the phone after Mass if they want to talk about Helen. You know, it's like I've turned around and I've said to, people, excuse me, I know it's hard to remember because the tabernacle isn't right in front of us, but we are in the presence of the Lord right now. And so why don't you just exchange phone numbers? But that's a big tick off for me. I don't know what to do about that one. I sort of do the St. Teresa thing with the nun behind her clicking her teeth and offer it up to God.
Well, Maureen, I just have to say real quickly, I love your recipe for needs and wants. I have been practicing that for a couple years now, and I haven't perfected it yet, but I'm really working on that. This idea of, is this a want? Is this something I'm just wanting? Or is this something I truly, definitely need? And it's interesting because
that is exactly why you should take that walk.
Right.
You will know, I mean, you're carrying what you need on your back.
Exactly. That's why it's on my bucket list. But I will tell you, it's very interesting what you're saying, because sometimes those wants are so distracting, and it's so interesting how you said, you were hesitant. You're hesitant with the car because it'll stop you from having that beautiful regimen of having your prayer time and to pray for others. And it's so true, because we get all these wants, and all they are is really distractions. And it's fascinating, Maureen. So I'll have to take you up on that. We'll have to keep this conversation going. You'll never know. Jerry, have you done that walk?
Unfortunately, my knees and feet and legs wouldn't hold up. So you and Maureen have a great time. Send a postcard. Let me know how it goes. Maureen, thank you. We got to get to a couple other calls here. What great insights you shared, though, today, Maureen. You really made the program better. And we pick a short take every day, one of the calls that we post on EWTN's Catholic Radio Facebook page, and that very well could be it today. We got time, hopefully, for a couple more. Honey, thank you for your very generous and gracious patience in Seneca Falls, New York. Hello, honey. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi,
honey, are you there? Yep. Hi, you're on the air.
Hi. I got about the same thing she does, where people, my big thing is when people overuse modern conveniences without thinking about the fact that people in foreign countries don't have them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I remember, honey and Debbie, People who long-time listeners to the show will remember my mentioning my late uncle, Father Harold Thiel. He was a Redemptorist priest, and when the oil was still wet on his hands, as they say, from his ordination, he wanted to go to Thailand. I think it was called Siam at the time, and he ministered to the refugees from Cambodia and Laos, the Hmong refugees. And I went and visited him there, and believe me, I could not. I looked at this and said, how can anybody still this was in the 20th century, how can anybody still live in these conditions? And to celebrate the holiday sacraments like Christmas and Easter, it would take him weeks because he had to go from village to village to village and climb up into the mountains by foot. They had no running water, no electricity, and they were just, Debbie, some of the most grateful people. When they saw him come, it was just like, Father is here, we get the sacrament. I mean, there was such gratitude, and I mean, I could not relate to it, but it was so educational for me. It was so educational.
Yeah. And then you think about what Honey's saying too. It's so true. These modern conveniences that we have all around us that we're using right now in order to broadcast, we just expect them to always be there. And when there's so many, there's the rest of the world that is they don't have these luxuries, and yet they have the most beautiful, joy-filled spirit and lives. So it gives us a lot to think about and to kind of get back into perspective. And I think it's the perfect time during Advent if we do exactly that. We just start to take note of what we have around us and all the blessings and to be grateful for. So thank you so much, Honey, for waiting and imparting your wisdom on this. We appreciate it. You definitely helped to shape the show.
In fact, thanks, Honey. Appreciate it. I was just listening the other day on YouTube. I like to listen to a little music in the afternoon, and that song by Band Aid, remember that? I think it was 1984, Do They Know It's Christmas? You know, it talks about there will be no snow in Africa this Christmas, and there's that one line that just really, it's so stark, Debbie. It says, you know, this year, thank God it's them instead of you, and it's an eye-opening, I think, reminder that we have to realize, you know, as we do have so many great things, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying them, what God has given us, but just doing so always with a sense of gratitude and detachment so that, you know, we don't become owned by them, and remembering there are people who don't have what we have. So we got time for Rita here, I think, in Farmington, Michigan, listening on Ave Maria Radio. Rita, you will be our last caller. We've got 1 minute and a half. Go ahead, Rita. Welcome.
Hi, thank you so much. I really enjoy your show. I try to do my cooking around it so I can listen to the radio.
Oh, good.
I can relate to both of you when, Jerry, when you talk about drivers. My biggest pet peeve with drivers is when they don't signal. They don't use a turn signal. You know, you can be waiting to turn left, and they're coming at you going to turn right, and they don't let you know until the very last minute. So you waste time waiting for them when you could have turned many minutes earlier.
Sure.
And then with your pet peeve, Debbie, about the computers, I only have a desktop. I don't have Wi-Fi or the smartphone or anything like that. And it can be frustrating on the other end when technology moves so fast. And if you don't have the smartphone or the Wi-Fi, everybody looks at you like you're crazy.
Right. No, I can relate to that, Rita. I agree with you. Yeah. But I have to tell you, going back to the signals, I just think sometimes folks we're sometimes unconscious when we're driving, and that's unfortunate because it translates to that we're being kind of rude if we don't, have the turn signals. But so it's an interesting thing. I think it goes back to, we just have to kind of stay in the moment and realize what we're doing at that moment.
Yes.
Yeah, excuse me. I have a frog in my throat. I just want to tell you, Arizona's changing. Well, Arizona went from super hot to cold to hot to cold. So this is where we live in right now. So it's a little bit difficult. So excuse me, Rita, but thank you so very much for your take on this.
Thank you, Rita, for joining us on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Our social media guy, Jeff, weighed in as well. He said he stepped in some dog leavings last night. He says, my car and my shoes smell because someone did not pick up after their pet. That was from Jeff Burson. So, Jeff, we hope that you get that resolved very, very soon. But very soon. Yeah, it's a good example of what we're talking about today.
So you decided this topic for tomorrow. It's called Paint Your Picture. Tell us real quickly a little bit about it tomorrow.
You know
Paint
what?
Your picture.
Yeah, let me...
Is that like a tapestry of your life?
Yeah. Let me.
I like that. That would be great.
Yeah. If you were asked to draw a picture of your life, what would it look like? What would yours include? What colors would you use? What would you have in the picture? A house, a dog, a car, a bright sun? Would you have clouds? Would you have rain? So, if you were asked to draw a picture to explain your life, what would yours include? What would it look like?
I'm going to love this show tomorrow. Until then, have a beautiful and blessed day. We'll see you real soon.